I remember I had a customer a long time ago was telling me that brake feel is like a bicycle's handshake. It's like that's like that it gives you a certain impression, a certain confidence, and a certain feel when you ride the bike. And when your braking is such an intuitive process, it has to be ready and it has to feel exactly the way you expect it to feel. People, once they kind of attach to a certain brand or a certain style of braking, they usually stay with it.
What is it about brakes? I mean, well, we talked a little bit about the modulation.
Sure. The way the system.
People are very particular.
Well, right. You can almost think about them nowadays as the way you would think about a suspension system on a bike, because it's a linkage. We're talking about a linkage and leverage rates. Mm-hmm. In this case, it's how much hydraulic pressure, how much fluid is being pushed from at the beginning of the lever stroke versus the end of the lever stroke. So there's going to be a certain amount of progression. There's going to be a certain amount of linearity, bite point feel as far as like how it ramps up. There's a lot of different variables, flex in the system, swell in the line. But, I would say most customers seem to be wanting as short a stroke as they can get. Mm-hmm. But subtle off the top so that you can just do a little bit of scrubbing of speed. But at the same time, you don't want a brake that's so sensitive that when you pull it just a little bit, it's already immediately slowing the bike down, at least for me.
Yeah.
And that's where I struggle with some of the Maguras, especially the 7s, is that there's just too much power happening too quickly. And the same thing with the Shimanos.
Right.
Because when it's rough and things are bouncing and jostling, it's sometimes very difficult to be super precise and controlled with a single digit. You don't have the ability to just be really, really subtle with it when things are you need to be able to just kind of grab a handful but not have it deliver so much power that you're just robbing all of your momentum.
Right.
And so that's where there's just a sweet spot that each company has to kind of fine tune.
Well, and for me, I like to go up in the hills, up in the mountains in the summer, and a lot of switchbacks, a lot of technical stuff where you really need the modulation. I find I don't like the grabbiness because you don't want to completely stop. You want to be able to slow and
right. I mean, and your finger will adjust to any system eventually, but it's just like
you said, off the top.
Right. For me, it's I don't like a brake system that's super grabby initially. I've been riding Hopes for ages. I do plan on trying a set of the Magura MT5s on my next build, but it's going to be with a Galfer pad setup and a different rotor to try to fine tune some of the aspects of that. But yeah, the modulation is key.
I've not had good luck with Maguras. I had the MT5s on, and with Adam's guidance, I went with the Code RSCs. I do have them on a different bike, and I've been surprised at how much I like them because Hope has always been my standard go-to over the years. But the RCs were available, and SRAM is becoming kind of the standard. I mean, you can find the parts everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a consideration with, we should say there's a lot of considerations with brake choice, what you and I were kind of talking about earlier, whereas brake feel is a fairly unique thing between manufacturers, and it can sometimes be almost as personal as a grip or a saddle or a pedal. When you find a brake feel that you like, it's such... I remember I had a customer a long time ago was telling me that brake feel is like a bicycle's handshake. It's like that's like that it gives you a certain impression, a certain confidence, and a certain feel when you ride the bike. And when your braking is such an intuitive process, it has to be ready and it has to feel exactly the way you expect it to feel. People, once they kind of attach to a certain brand or a certain style of braking, they usually stay with it. And I mean, the big distinct ones would be Shimano has their servo wave and their power is delivered in a unique way. And some people really like that, but it's also, some people don't. And
Now,
then,
Shimano's used to have a lot of noise. Have they solved that?
well, noise has nothing to do with brand. In reality, it's basically just the particulars of pad rotor combination. These are metallic pads. These are going to make noise if you ride them when it's wet and cold.
Yeah.
I mean, just Shimano's the same deal.
But they're also grabby. I always found Shimano's to be
That's what we're talking about with feel. And so yeah, they deliver their power all up front with that servo wave. The Maguras, depending on which model, the 7s definitely hit pretty hard right away. The 5s less so. They have more modulation at the bite.
Right.
But the SRAMs, the Code RSCs to me feel very similar in some of the ways as a Hope.
The Hope, yeah.
There's a lot of similarities between the two as far as their modulation, their feel, how you actually use them, where they make power, and how they make power. Then yeah, like what we were talking about though, the nice thing about the SRAM family, so that's RockShox, that's SRAM, anything in their realm, it's usually pretty easy to find parts and spares and seal kits. And this is so.
Whereas with the Hopes,
well,
it's kind of more of a gamble,
right? Just because they are really restricted in their manufacturing right now, they're just not. They're just kind of slower. But one of the main things when you're talking about SRAM and Hope versus Shimano or Magura or whoever, they still offer service packs, and
yes,
this is something that I still do not understand.
I know
that like
big deal.
Brake systems have rubber seals and fluid, just like your fork, just like any hydraulic system. It's gonna wear out. It's gonna need to be serviced. But for the life of me, I cannot understand Shimano and Magura. They do not offer service packs. And so if you fry your Shimano lever, you throw it away and put on a new lever. And this happens all the time. I mean, it's a well-known phenomenon. And then, Magura, they have a 5-year leak-proof warranty. So if you have a problem, they will take care of it, but you got to send your brake system to them, and they will service or replace whatever and send it back to you. So it's just kind of, I like the idea of a $20 O-ring kit. We break it apart. I just rebuilt the rear caliper on those V4s from Hope. It's a tedious job. It's not easy, but it can be done. And now that guy's beautiful $600 red set of Hope V4s stays on his bike, and it keeps working. So, I'm
and the same with the calipers on the Shimanos,
oh yeah, they don't do anything.
Yeah, you basically
they don't do anything.
Yeah.
And we can. I'd love to have a conversation about how stupidly fragile the current Shimano pistons are, and they have this goofy ring on the outside edge. And if you're not super careful when you're pushing those pistons back to put in new pads, they've cracked a number of times. Not just me. Customers have come in with cracked ones from trying to push their pads back, or just. I had one guy where the pads weren't lined up with the rotor, and just the fact that the pads were kind of not actuating straight, it cracked one. So, yeah, it is what it is. So I like the serviceability of those two brands. For sure. That's a big thing to like. And then, of course, going to any bike shop USA when you're traveling, brake pads, rotors, you're going to find SRAM stuff. Yep. So for sure, there's a lot of things to like. But that's just ownership.
Yeah,
let's talk about the brakes itself.
Talk about the brakes, because
right.
the adjustability.
And so these guys have been leading the way for quite a while when it comes to features that work, I think. And although we're going to see the new Hopes come out, and there's a lot of things that they've adapted. So these guys are using the seal bearing at the lever pivot, which is a subtlety, but really, really nice, because there's just no slop in that lever. It doesn't move. Wow. Up or down at all. There's no play. It's solid. And then that means there's just there's no friction when you're pulling that lever. So that's a great detail. The new Hopes are going to have that. And then, a contact adjuster that does make a difference.
Is that same as bite point?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that's bite point. Yeah. The Hope one works, but it works in conjunction with the piston. So when you turn the Hope one in, then you have to readjust your lever. Yes. Whereas these two are completely independent of one another, which is nice. It could be more aggressive. They could calibrate this, because everybody ends up with them almost turned all the way in, usually, as aggressive as short of contact. So they could change that to where it starts probably almost where it is now at full in, and then be able to go even more aggressive. But other than that, They're great. The other nice thing is ambidextrous. They flip-flop either way.
Oh,
so
good point,
super
good point.
simple for moto or standard.
They're integrated out of the box, right?
Yeah, so the RSCs come with the matchmaker system. You know, it can be added to any SRAM brake, but yeah, they ship it, which is a nice detail. And yeah, the lever shape is nice. You know, it's I like a broad kind of flat-ish lever without. I'm not a huge fan of the really aggressive hook that your Magura's had.
Yeah.
I almost prefer the stock 5. Because it's just a little more subtle.
I found it grew on me, and the levers didn't bother me. Yeah,
it's not bad. But yeah, these are these are a great shape. These are a really nice ergo, and then you know, no tools. Everything just adjusts with knobs. Right. As far as the calipers go, they're a big 2-piece. You know, they bolt together, so they're easy to work on because they're just 2 halves. And they got the probably the easiest bleeding system on the market, I would say, because they use the bleeding edge system. So there's a little rubber boot that comes out here, but there's an interface on the inside, and so the bleeder just clicks in, and then you turn. The bleeder is the tool.
Right.
So you open up the bleed fitting with the syringe, and there's no drip. There's no fluid exposed at the caliper. So it's super clean. You're not introducing air, or you're not. You know, it's just a very well thought out system. And then you know you just use the 2 syringes. So I feel like there's.
And look at all the clearance there is here to get to actually pull out the.
Yeah, you can fully pull the pads out. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Like
so, yeah, in general, they just kind of do the job. They just work. They're a big, powerful downhill brake, but they're totally appropriate on any trail, enduro, you know, anything where you just want a good, solid set of brakes.
And these are the rotors.
These are the new HS2s. So this is SRAM's latest rotor update. It's 2 millimeter thick. They've gone thicker than the don't touch it. Don't touch it. Your fingers,
my hands are clean.
They are not clean. They have oils on them. We never touch a brake rotor with a hand if you can avoid it. But they claim better heat dissipation, and obviously they're thicker, so they're going to be stiffer and last longer. You know. Yep, that's just their latest one. They go all the way up to a 220 option now. Which is becoming more and more common on big 29ers, you know, enduros and downhill bikes with 29-inch wheels
and the e-bikes, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So nice to have that bigger option.
Nice.
And then these are stock metallic pads. That's what they ship with.
Oh,
obviously, SRAM offers their own organic pad, but I've had great luck with the Galfer stuff as of late.
Right.
And they offer both their Pro Green and then their e-bike purple. The e-bike purple is really showing itself as a killer option.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, a huge amount of bite for a non-metallic pad. Great durability, but almost no noise, but more feel at the lever than a metallic option. So those have been nice.
All right. Well, you got a customer here, so
no worries.
We better wrap it up. But thanks a lot.
Yeah.